Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Joelle Simone Anthony. I'm also known as the Grave Woman, and I am so happy to be joined today by Mr. Tony Rose King. I said that backwards, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
Mr. Tony King Rose. I'm sorry. I keep wanting to invert your two last names. And Tony is the founder of Trans Death Care. And why don't you introduce yourself, Tony, and let everyone know a little bit about what it is that you do?
Well, I'm a foundation student with the Canadian College of Funeral Services. So I'm going through my first year to become a funeral director and embalmer. I'm going for my dual license, and I'm up here in Canada. Yeah, I'm not really working at a funeral home right now. I'm just kind of figuring out and learning how to become an effective funeral director and embalmer and what it takes. And it's been very cool and very informative for me. Yeah.
Awesome. So why don't you tell me a little bit about what prompted you to start Trans Death Care?
What prompted me to start Trans Death Care was just kind of when I was deciding to go into funeral school. You know, you kind of have to do the Google of how to get into funeral school. What is funeral school? Because it's not really readily available. And I was also kind of Googling whether or not there's trans funeral directors. And the only thing I really got was an article saying a funeral director who had come out as trans and got fired, and nothing else really.
And you yourself are trans, correct?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I
at
am.
what age did you know that were you were born female? What age did you know that you identified as male?
I didn't come out till I was 16. That's kind of when I figured it out for myself, or was starting to figure out for myself that that was how I wanted to identify, and that's what felt right for me. Even as a kid, I do have memories of feeling more like a tomboy and wanting to call myself Tony and having those like thoughts of being male, but couldn't really recognize or identify what that was because I didn't really know what being trans was or what LGBTQ was. Like, nobody really knows unless they're exposed to that and taught that. So yeah, I kind of just started learning about LGBTQ people and the culture when I got to around age 13 to 15. And through that, learned more about myself.
Now, were there others around you who identified as trans as well, or did you have to learn through research at the library or books, or did you have people, mentors around you as a younger person?
There wasn't very many mentors, especially where I grew up, because I was in a small town area and it was a very conservative area as well, especially when I was growing up there. It's changed in the past couple of years, which is good. One big person for me was Ray Spoon. They're non-binary and they're a musician from Alberta. And they came out with this documentary called My Prairie Home. And I came across that when I was a part of the GSA for my school and watched that. And that was my first introduction into someone having feelings about not being the gender they were assigned at birth. And it really spoke to me. And that kind of was my introduction and helped those wheels start to turn. I didn't really figure it out till I did meet a couple other trans people when I went to gay camp at like 15, which is kind of funny, but yeah.
Okay. Now, I heard you use the pronoun there just now when you were talking about the person that did the documentary. In the funeral home, when a funeral director is working with the family of a trans individual, how important are pronouns?
Pronouns are very important. They're really important in the fact of a person's identity as they're alive as well, because being called the right pronouns is literally the easiest way to accept someone, and it's the most easiest way to express that you accept that person for who they are. And trans people and people who are non-binary and who have chosen pronouns, they really appreciate having their pronouns used. So it's really important to, in my opinion, like extremely important.
Wow. Yeah, I would
Yeah.
imagine so. I've had experience. I live here in Atlanta, and the LGBTQ community here is huge. And I have actually been in conference rooms with families where a lady who is transitioned from male to female lived her life as a woman, but the family refused to honor that at the time of death. What advice could you give for funeral directors in that situation? Because it was very, I don't want to say uncomfortable, but it was very tense. What advice would you give for funeral directors in that situation?
In that situation, the advice I would give is try to open up the conversation to include the fact that this deceased has identified as female in the end of their life, because families go through grief, and also some families don't even respect their loved ones' choices. So opening up that conversation and figuring out whether or not it's just them reverting back in their grief or if it's a full non-acceptance, and just kind of seeing where the family is with the relationship to that deceased person would be really important. Because it would also kind of give you a sense to ask about friends and other people in their social life who would be remembering this person as their chosen identity, as their true selves. And that would be able to give you that opening of conversation to finding those people and seeing if they need a memorial service too, or if you can work together and just make it more open and get the conversation out there, if you get
Another
what I
thing,
mean.
definitely. Another
Yeah.
thing that you talked about in your blog piece was the fact that anatomically, when working with a trans individual, the anatomy may not be what the director is expecting. What are you doing through Trans Death Care to kind of educate funeral directors about that? And how can we as funeral directors become prepared for that in the embalming room?
I would say a lot of it will be looking at what intersex is and how intersex can present in people's genitalia. Um, it's not very big and open and talked about in the science and medical community either, because it's not really been talked about. But with hormonal changes and with taking estrogen and testosterone, things do change. Like clits grow bigger and penises can shrink, and everything can be different because some people go on hormone blockers. So some people may never have their puberty except for on their new hormone. And some people will have gone through puberty and are going through a second one. So it can definitely change your body. And in my opinion, it is possibly noticeable. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So talk to me a little bit more about Trans Death Care and what your mission is.
My mission is for Trans Death Care to make it a resource and education and just open conversations for people about being trans or non-binary or intersex and end of life care, because as a community we need acceptance and we need to feel safe, and if we have allies in funeral service and in death care, that makes our end of life easier and makes us feel like we're cared about to the extent that everyone else is cared about, for sure. And
Definitely.
yeah.
What makes you feel cared for and respected, and what do you think are just some baseline things that funeral directors can do to make families comfortable, people that are coming into the funeral home that may identify as transgender or transsexual? What are some things we can do as directors to just open our doors and open our hearts to this sector of the community?
Just keep being open-minded and keep being unassuming, because I know we like to judge people by stereotypes and by first impressions, but it's a lot of what we learn through interpersonal relationships of just keeping that open and empathetic nature that we have as funeral directors, wanting to care for people's deceased loved ones, and just respecting pronouns and respecting the fact that there is more than just he, she, male, female, and being open to the idea that it will come across your funeral home at some point. It's definitely the most important thing, I think.
Is there anything else that you wanted to add?
Yeah. I think as funeral directors and embalmers, we need to be having these conversations with family and with the loved ones and learning from them. Because if we just panic and do, oh, I don't know how to deal with this, we'll just do whatever the family wants and get it over with, just like one and done, then we're not really going to be learning from it and not really understanding exactly what the needs of the family were. And
so what tips do you have for families when going into the funeral
home? I would say definitely ask questions. That's the biggest thing, is asking questions and not being afraid to advocate for yourself, especially if you're LGBT or trans or it's your partner and you may not have the executor or power of attorney, but you want it, kind of thing, and see what you can figure out and work with the funeral homes. Because I feel like most funeral homes should be accepting and should be open-minded enough to try and answer your questions if you ask them to.
A lot of times what I've learned through working in this industry is just because some people or something should be, it doesn't mean that it is all the time. And Lauren, Little Miss Funeral and I have had conversations about conversations that take place amongst directors away from the families. And a lot of times they can be offensive racially, sexually, or in other ways. What is some terminology that funeral directors should avoid when speaking about a trans decedent?
Using their wrong pronouns, for sure, is one. If you have someone who is female and you're using he, him pronouns for them, that's invalidating them. That's not respecting them. That's not respecting their vulnerability, because they are in your care and they've been trusted in your care, and you should be treating them exactly how you would be treating them if they were alive and in the arrangement room arranging someone else's funeral. And yeah, just be open-minded and don't laugh about it. Don't make jokes about it, because just like everything else, it's not really a joke to be had.
I agree. Pre-planning. Do you offer any type of pre-planning services for the trans community?
I don't personally, but I can direct people in directions to some awesome pre-planners for sure, because I know quite a few, and I know a few who are coming up and who are breaking into the profession as well. So yeah, I can definitely direct people in the right direction for sure.
Okay. Yeah. So if someone is interested in working with you or connecting with you and finding out more about trans death care, where can they find you?
They can find me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, all at Trans Death Care. I also have my email, transdeathcare@gmail.com. And yeah, you can message me there and I can answer your questions to the best of my ability, or find someone who can answer them for you. Yeah.
What are you most looking forward to after finishing mortuary school?
I'm looking forward to working and learning and expanding trans death care and seeing where everything just grows, because I know it will grow with me as a funeral director, and I'm excited. Yeah.
I'm really excited for you. I think what you're doing is so necessary and so unique, and definitely something that the industry needs. And I just can't wait to see where your career goes.
Yeah, I can't wait to see too.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. Again, my name is Joelle Simone Anthony. I'm also known as the Grave Woman. My guest today has been Mr. Toni King Rose.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I got it right. And he is the founder of Trans Death Care. And live life, love hard, and we'll talk to you next time.
Yeah.